Hello, I'm John Hartledge. Welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about a grape type that's really close to my heart. I know in the past I've said Syrah is my favorite, but Zinfandel adds just some kind of special connection for me. Its history, its origin, of course, its taste, also the miscommunications that go on about Zinfandel. Love to clarify some of that. This is going to be a lot of fun. Let's chat wine. So, Zinfandel. I'm surprised that I have not done Zinfandel to date on this channel. And I have to say, this is the perfect timing. An old friend of mine from the wine business, and I'm talking 20 years ago, reached out to me and had seen a couple of my episodes, and I literally have not talked to him in years. And he got my phone number from one of my family members, and the first thing he did on the phone was say, "Let's chat wine," and I was floored. I knew who it was right away, and he mentioned that he had started a wine venture. I met him in the wine industry, like I said, 20 years ago. But he's I would say, one of my mentors. Not my original wine mentor, but I really took an approach when I was so into it when I started in wine. I learned from everybody. And he was certainly a wine guy's wine guy. And as a wine salesperson, Scott Zanon was always a person who not only appreciated the product, but never hard sold you any particular varietal or particular brand. He really connected with his customers, and I was one of his buyers at the time, and I was buying wine for a pretty large company. And he always made a connection with you as on the appreciation of the wine and the real goods, and of course the product that's actually going into the glass. And that's my approach. That's what I want to offer you, my viewers, is just some of the tools that you need. You may not be able to get one of the wines that I talk about. You may not be able to get that exact bottle, but that's not the important part. The important part are the skills and the experience and the palate knowledge and just a few tools to make your own assessment and choose your own wines and ultimately discover your own taste. Because that's really what it's about. Our tastes are so individual and so distinct from person to person. You really have to have your own kind of set of tools, if nothing else, and context. And I think that's really what my goal is. And that's what Scott said when he talked to me on the phone, because I said, "Scott, your wine is only available in Ohio." And he said, "I know, but I still would like you to feature on the show." And I said, "I'd love to feature on the show. But I know my viewers can't necessarily get the bottle." But then he nailed exactly what I'm going for. And that's the tools and offering that chance for you as a viewer to learn about your own taste and make your own choices in a very impactful way for your own wine experience and that of your guests. So anyway, without further ado, Scott Zanon Wine, he actually has had wine relationships with some growers in California and with vineyards that go back to the early 1900s. And he has produced a Zinfandel, and he actually can label it as old vine Zinfandel because the vines are at least 40 or more years old. And as a wine vine gets older, it gets very gnarly. It produces less and less fruit. And you think, well, if it's not producing as much fruit, what good is it? That's really good for wine. As it gets more gnarly, produces less and less fruit, the fruit that it does produce is more intense and more flavorful and more concentrated. And Dry Creek Valley in Sonoma, California, is considered one of the best areas for Zinfandel, not only in California, but in the world. We used to think that Zinfandel was a descendant of the grape called Primitivo in Italy. And Primitivo is a really important grape for the southeast part of Italy, known as Puglia, and that's Puglia, the old name being Apulia, or the Latin name. Well, now DNA testing has shown that the Zinfandel grape of California, the Primitivo grape of Italy, are both identical from a DNA standpoint to a grape from Croatia. So just east of Italy, across the Adriatic Sea, another area that a lot of a lot of people now are referring to Croatia as the less expensive trip to Italy because it's very Italianate, it's very European experience. Of course, you've got that ocean climate, but Croatia, this grape in Croatia goes way back centuries. But we've identified it as a Croatian grape, and I will now pronounce the name of the Croatian grape. You'll see a little schematic above me probably with the actual spelling, and the pronunciation is Crljenak Kaštelanski. Don't try to say that 5 times fast, you may need a tissue. But it's Crljenak Kaštelanski. So I'm sure my producers are going to put up the actual spelling, then they'll put the pronunciation. Crljenak Kaštelanski, known in America as Zinfandel. From Dry Creek, from my very good friend, Scott Zanon. He sent me a really nice little wine opener. He knows I like the waiter-style corkscrews. Now, just the other night, I actually cut my finger on a foil. I like Scott's foil. It's very pliable. There's some material in it that makes it, I'm even rubbing it now, it's very not sharp. I have a razor sharp because somebody had a little too much tin in their foil when I was opening it. I really like this foil. Love Scott's labeling. He has an old wine vine and he used his name, Z-A-N-O-N. His website is zanonzinfandel.com. But I love the way he used the name, and all of his wines, he picked 3 letters for each one. So he does a Zinfandel, he does a Petit Syrah, he does a Sauvignon Blanc, and he does a Sangiovese, and he picked 3 letters to intersect with Zanon. So let's get to it. You've seen me open. You know, we get the point of the corkscrew right down, and then we get ourselves parallel. Oh, this is a beautiful opener. This is what I like. See that little hinge? We'll bring that up, and we're not going to pop it. We're just going to just a little nice, gentle lift. And this is real cork, so I am definitely going to check the smell, and it's beautiful. Now, the wine is young. This was just released. It's a 2017. But everything's nice, neutral. There's no corky smell, so we're good to go. Now, pressure's on for this tasting for sure. I have a long time connection with now a winemaker who is making a California wine. He's only selling it in Ohio, but there are wine clubs all over the country, so it can be obtained through Wine Club. But very reasonably priced wine. I mean, this is $20 in Ohio. And the challenge in the United States with wine sales is that every state controls some aspect of every bit of spirits, wine, beer, and liquors, wine, beer, spirits. But in some states like Ohio, it's an automatic markup. On a case, they'll give a little discount. Other states, close to Manhattan, so New Jersey, New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, they'll affect the whole state's beverage control because there's so many people, it's a very lucrative business. They'll be able to work out some of the laws so that there's some leeway. So you can buy wines very cheaply in the New Jersey market, not so cheaply in the Ohio market. They control the markup and the profits, the profit margins for the retailers. It does help keep retailers in business, and even small retailers. But only available in Ohio or by club, but the pressure's on because I've got such a close connection to this person. So I'm gonna cleanse my palate, rinse a little. I've talked about banana before, a really nice, for me, wine tasting. It's clear, it doesn't give me the biscuit residue of a cracker. There's no acidity like you would get in citrus or the malic from apple. So let's go ahead and first on Old Vine Zinfandel, very deep color. See, it's almost inky, dark, rich color. Beautiful aromatic right away. It has a little peppery aromatic, and definitely some black fruits. My personal favorite aspect to Zin when it happens is red berry, a little more of a like raspberry, not cranberry, but pomegranate, that kind of red currant. This feels like it's going to be a little more black currant. I've had some Petit Syrah Zinfandel that goes blueberry, and that's an astounding experience. This feels like it's going to be a really well-made wine. All the way through. It starts out really pretty big on the palate, but not overdone. It doesn't hit you like a lead weight, but it does. You know you've got something on the palate, but it doesn't. It doesn't go overly jammy. There's actually an elegance to it all the way through. I'm really interested to see once we aerate. So knowing Scott as I know, he and I used to play a little tennis when I was in the Columbus, Ohio area, and he's a fierce competitor. I could never beat him, and I won a few games here and there, but sets, no. He always won. He's a really good tennis player, but very competitive. And one of the reasons why he started making wine was out of competitiveness. He has an amazing palate, excellent appreciator of wine, as I've said. But he tasted a wine that was just overdone. And that's the easiest way to say it. There are some red wines that I think in the past episode I've talked about, like a Brett style. And it's actually a flaw in some wine that was popularized in the mid to late 80s. This overdone, unctuous, dense, goes on for days where you really almost can't have food with it. It can't match with anything. It just stand alone. And that's okay. Get a cigar out, get something really obnoxious to go with it, and paint the picture. But that really became a popular style, particularly in the American market. And it was one reason why a lot of European wine drinkers think, oh, the Americans are so gauche. Everything has to be over the top. Well, there are some aspects to America that, yes, we like things over the top. But once you start trying wine for a while and your palate starts tasting these things, you do want something with a little more elegance. You don't want it overdone. And when Scott tasted this one particular wine, he said, I think I can do better than that. And his competitive edge took over. And he really went after this and utilized some great contacts. And he's dealing with some vintners and wine growers in California. And he goes out regularly to blend the wines. And he really is involved. He is the winemaker. So it's really a cool thing. I'm really excited for Scott. And I think his Zinfandel is elegant, beautiful. And the price, especially with the word old vine, because, as I said, the older the vine, the less production you get. So what does that mean? Less produce means it's going to be more expensive. But to offer an old vine Zinfandel, when he first asked me what he thought I would price it at before he sent me the wine, I said, it's probably going to be $25 to $30. He said, no, $20 a bottle. And to offer that, Petit Syrah and Sangiovese all at $20, that's a really reasonable price point. And I'm very excited that he's offering that, and very excited about what's going on in the glass. It's what you want if you know Zinfandel. This is Italianate. This doesn't go red berry. I've only had about a handful of wines that go a little more red berry and a little more zingy. I like, ooh, zing, zing. This is not that. This is, I have to say, Italianate, and it doesn't surprise me. Scott loves his Italian ancestry, and he appreciates that. And it has a primitivo kind of feel to it. There's a little bit of earthiness. So Dry Creek Valley is known for its amazing plethora and unique sets of soils, amazing soils, and those soils. Whether or not they aerate very quickly, so the water drains out really quickly. Again, stressing the vines, getting the water away from the grapes, so you have more intense fruit in the actual berries, or just the content of the soil adding to the nuance of the flavors. It's amazing those different soils can affect the flavors. This is a beautiful wine. There's a lot of complexity, and yet what I have to say, there's this wonderful elegance that you usually don't expect from Zinfandel, because Zinfandel can take on a really dense, overdone quality. Tremendous. Don't be confused. I have to have one small tangent with you. Still in the United States, the perception persists that if you say Zinfandel, it's a blush. And that was because in the 70s, Cabernet really got popular, and Cabernet continues to be more and more popular. There was all this Zinfandel, because Zinfandel really was the main grape for a while in California. A lot of Italian winemakers, they wanted Primitivo, they wanted something like that. And so that's what they were producing. And what do you do with all that extra fruit? They made a rosé, and they wanted to make it different than the French, so they made it sweet, white Zinfandel. It's more of a sweet blush, Beautiful for spring, excellent to make a sangria with. Also excellent to introduce your palate to wine because of that little bit of sweetness. Great, but Zinfandel, on a term by itself, means full-bodied red wine, and a wonderful example of that. And I commend Scott for his efforts, and I do look forward to tasting his Petit Syrah on another episode. Oh, thank you, Scott. Until then, I'm John Hartledge. Subscribe, share, sip. When you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell so you get the notifications. It's not spam. It's an email from my site saying, hey, I got a new episode up. Sip it. Get something like it. Go find a Zinfandel. If you can find a dry Kriegerstein, great. Sip it and definitely share. We want to keep this going. It's a lot of fun. You can tell I have fun, but I just want this community to grow. I think it's a great idea. We're really, really excited about sharing on a weekly basis with you. Every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Cheers. Let's chat wine.